drinking etiquette. The drinking etiquette.
It was a kind of a, hang on, where's your glass gone, Luke? No, you was,
What are we drinking today, Luke? What have you got there?
I've got apple juice. Actually. I decided I'd go for the juice because I would enjoy a long coffee, but it will go colder. I just decided it was juice. It was time for juice in the afternoon. That's what I decided.
Good one. And you, Jackie?
Cup of tea.
Me too. Cup of tea. So cheers, guys. Thank you for breaking the ice with us. We'll do a little virtual cheers. All right, let's just jump right into it. I want to know what personal attributes make a good producer.
The ability to keep a cool head when everything is going pretty knotty around you. I think that's one of the things. Juggling, knowing little bits about everything. Mm-hmm. So trying to keep across the whole cycle of production. And calmness under pressure.
I think those are really good qualities. I think that a good producer is like a good GP. He's able to diagnose an awful lot of conditions. They may not be the specialist that will have the answer, but they'll know who to refer you to get to the right place. I think totally different picture. Actually, like a good vicar. Now, most people might not get a weird thing. Some people might not think of vicars. A vicar really ought to be there to enable the people they're looking after to live, flourish the best they can in whatever they are, whether they're a banker or a journalist or whatever their job is. They ought to be there to champion the people they're working with, and actually, who knows producers, but you'll know directors, you'll know stars, you'll know you might even know the people who make costumes. You shouldn't really know the producers. They're there to bring everyone else to the best place they can be.
Oh, I love that. They're there to bring everyone else to the best place they can be. Yeah, I really, really love that. Let's talk a little bit about White Gold. Congratulations. I watched it and it was heartbreaking, but beautiful in the same way, and it explores the horrific realities of albinism. So, what made you guys as producers want to tell this specific story?
Okay, so 10 years ago, we at Footprint Films made a feature film called Africa United, which was about it followed 5 children in Africa who walked to the Soccer World Cup in Johannesburg, and it was a kind of fun family adventure film, but we also dealt with some of the issues surrounding kids in Africa, so child soldiers, sex workers, HIV, that kind of thing. And the original script had 7 children in it, and one of them was a kid with albinism, because we wanted to raise this issue of how people who have albinism in Africa live in fear of their lives. The trouble was 7 children in a film became slightly unwieldy. And so at script stage, we had to drop 2 of the children. And sadly, Pete, the child with albinism, was the one that bit the dust. So when Luke Bradford pitched this idea to the Pitch Film Fund, it was that moment when he thought, brilliant, 10 years on, I could have the opportunity to actually tell that story and to right the wrong of having dropped that particular strand of the story 10 years previously. But of course, the other side of that is that 10 years on, it's still an issue. Yeah. 10 years on, people with albinism are still living with that fear. So it was just, for me, it was something that I wanted to do.
Luke, I'd like to find out about the Pitch Film Fund, and I'd like to find out, number one, sort of the premise behind it, because I think it's super interesting, and number 2, how it was actually involved in the production of White Gold.
So the Pitch Film Fund was I've got loads of banners behind me, but with 2009, Jackie and I have been working with this along with Jackie's business partner in Footprint Films, Mark Blaney, since before then. In fact, when we were dreaming it up on the freeways of LA. Long story. Like most things. But this dream came from the idea of how can we support people who've got talent coming into the industry? How can we best help them and support them? What resources can we offer them? And we're particularly keen that people would pick up some Bible stories. Now, the Bible might seem like a kind of an odd place to go, but there's the whole of human life in there. And they're enduring stories that have lasted for a reason, and they're in the common domain. Anybody can get to them. And what's more, you can, there's no copyright on those stories.
Yeah.
You can go make them again.
Of course.
It doesn't matter who's made them. Cecil B. DeMille can't come after you. Obviously, he can't come after you, but I mean, his estate can't come after you. Nobody else can either. So what we did was we set off to invite people to submit an idea for a short film that took a story, a theme, a verse, a character, anything from any perspective. And we've been doing that for 10 years. Every now and again, I get an email saying, "Are you going to be doing the same theme again next year?" And we go, "Yeah, we haven't worked it out yet. Yeah, there's loads we've gone at." So the idea, that's the premise. You pitch an idea, and we help people in two ways. One is how to pitch, because oddly we've got quite good at spotting what a good pitch is and what a rubbish pitch is. We also help people develop their story and their idea around it, so that people who enter the process get masterclasses and feedback and courses. Because we noticed that in a lot of the opportunities that are offered to filmmakers don't offer any kind of elevation unless you are the only one picked. So whilst we've continued to put all of our main funding into one idea each year, we've added extra layers for the 10 finalists, for the 20 shortlisters, for anybody in consideration. And we want to build a community of people who are helping one another.
Jackie, what do you look for in a script when deciding whether or not you want to get involved in a project?
It's I said to somebody about this the other day, and it's a gut reaction. At Footprint, one of the things that we do is we tell quite a few true stories. That's what we've been developing quite a bit. And I think because Mark and I both come from documentary backgrounds, that authenticity of storytelling is quite important to us both. And then, as much as we love just being entertained, we also actually want films that people will come and see and then go away and think about afterwards.
Yes.
So our most recent film, which South African film, Escape from Pretoria, was about two white guys who stood up against apartheid and went to prison for it. And you just sort of think, that was a story that we developed right from the word go, when Mark, my producing partner, met Tim Jenkin, who was the guy who had gone to prison for standing up against apartheid. And you just want to think, wow, I just want people to come out of the cinema going, what would I have done in those circumstances? How would I have reacted to all of that? And also, could I have been as intelligent as he was to figure out how to get out of prison? That's the really crucial thing, is you want people to go in, sit down, watch the film, think, and then come out and either think about it or do something. After we made the film about the kids in Africa, we had a lovely email from a youth group that said, we watched that movie and then we raised some money and we went out to Tanzania and we helped build a school.
Amazing.
And you just think, that's it. That's what we wanted.
That's the power.
So those are the kinds of yeah, it is. And so those are the kinds of films that inspire us.
Yeah.
So for us, it has to be more than the sum of its parts. It has to say something, and it's that sort of what Mark describes as bums on seats, bums off seats to go and do something.
Yeah, impactful, going beyond what it is now. I love that. Luke, how do you select a director?
How do you select a director? The really smart play is selecting a director who's got a unique and authentic voice. So I think Jackie's described with Footprint, they're looking for people with a particular kind of story and the outcome of those. And that would resonate with us. And obviously I produce for Real Issues Films, which makes our short films with Jackie. And we often land on things like White Gold, which have that same resonance. But it is the authenticity of the voice that is so important. And particularly now, we want to hear everybody's voice. And there has been a kind of, it hasn't been a level playing field for all. And I think increasingly we want to hear those voices that are going to bring us understanding of the richness of our society and different perspectives. So there's something in the selection which is, what do we want to see, and we don't just want to see the same thing again. We want to hear fresh, new, original. It's great, isn't it? When you've always enjoyed a particular view, and then you go and see that view from a different position, and you appreciate something else about the place you're looking at, because you're seeing it in a different way and from a different angle. And I think that's what's really fresh about different directors.
As an actor, I'm super intrigued, and I'd love to know your answers on this question. But what is the thing, the X factor that you look for in an actor that makes you want to take them on? And then I've got a second question following that.
Yeah, so there are two answers to this really. One is, so when we did Africa United, and we had 5 unknown children in the film, and actually what we did was, when we were in the casting process, was we took a whole bunch of kids away who we'd seen audition tapes for, and we went to Kigali in Rwanda, which was where we were going to be filming, and workshopped with them. And I remember the kid who became the lead actor, I'd seen his self-tape, and I thought, yeah, he's all right. I'd seen another kid that I thought was better, potentially. And then I went into the room, and Debs, who was the director, had started doing a read-through with a group of the kids. And the little kid, Eria, who I'd thought his self-tape was okay, started reading, and the hairs on the back of my neck just stood up. And I thought, yeah, that's Dudu. That's our little lead character. So again, it's just that gut reaction. And there's a lot to be said for your gut reaction. There's a book called Blink by a guy called Malcolm Gladwell, which is very well worth reading, and that talks a lot about our gut reaction. And for you and I, Kendall, particularly as women, we are known for prevaricating. So we will, it's never the first wedding dress in the shop, is it? It's always the 65th, and then you go back to the first, because you've got to see the 1 to 65 before you choose the one. But actually, there's a lot to be said. If you see something, that's probably your gut reaction. So there's that about it. And then obviously, if you're at the bigger scale, so I've just done a film with Dan Radcliffe, that's very much about attracting an actor who really liked the script, wanted to do it. And then, of course, other actors will come on board because it's Dan and they want particularly to work with him.
Yeah.
And then you get into a whole round of negotiating about who's going to work with who, and so it can be very different responses depending on the level. And sometimes, I did a thing for directors of photography recently, and they'd asked a couple of producers to come in and talk to them about how we chose them. And sometimes you have to say it's just a really practical decision as a producer, because you have to make things work. So Escape, we actually shot in Australia, and it's a formal co-production between the UK and Australia, which immediately means there's a whole load of rules about who you can work with. So how many Australians you have, how many UK people you have. So then you just have to follow those rules, and you make practical decisions based around that. So as a producer, you're juggling, the gut feeling against who's going to work with who, and what rules you're constrained by because of the nature of the financing.
There is no clear path to becoming a producer. So how does one get into producing? It's not like you can really go to school to study the craft. It's a little more tricky. So how does one become a producer? How do you do it?
You can actually go to school to study the craft. You could go to film school. The NFTS does producing courses. So there's plenty of ways out there. But actually, I think somebody once said to me something quite crucial. No one gives you permission to join the film industry. So don't wait for them to tell you it's okay. You just get out there and you do it.
There are different sort of shades of producing as well. So some people are particularly good at bringing the finance. Some people are particularly good at the creative element in the pre-production stages. Some people are line producers, will be working in making sure that when you go to the shoot, everything's in place, all the permissions, all the certification, and everything's set up for the shoot to happen. So there are different types of producing that will suit different personalities as well, and people come into it therefore from different perspectives. Sometimes they come in. Jasmine Morrison, who has been on the pitch panel this year, has come in to film through the financing angle of it, and working a lot on the finishing of the financing deals and the legal aspect. And that can be something that people overlook or don't realize that maybe they have a gift in that kind of an area, and it can come into play for producing.
What do you want audiences to take away from White Gold, and where do you see it going?
Wow. If I could start, I want people to take away. You don't want to spoil the story now, because I want you to watch it.
No spoilers. No spoilers.
No spoilers allowed. But I want you to sit with Rafilwe. Remember, I said that thing about Job. Actually, one of the things about Job is no one really sits with him. People who are suffering, we want to run away from it. We can't quite cope with it. It's a thing we'd rather hide from, not look at. And yet, actually, particularly at a time like this, maybe it does us good just to dwell and be in that place and think, what's that like? And then allow that to speak to your heart. That's what I'd like people to take away.
Very cool. Jackie?
I think that's a really good summary. But I think also I'd like people to go away a bit fired up with indignation.
Yeah.
And start the conversation. Why is this still happening in the 21st century?
Yeah, 100%. If you could break the ice, meaning have a drink, with anyone, past or present, who would it be and why? And we will start with Luke.
Okay, so I'm going to go for Neil Armstrong, Edwin Aldrin, and Michael Collins. I'm going to have snuck. You have to go with me on this. I've snuck inside Apollo 11. There were 4 people there. I've got a bottle of champagne. I have no idea what champagne does. And I open it on the moon so that I get the rare chance to discover what happens to champagne. Maybe I can drink it without a glass. It's just floating around and I can grab it in my mouth. That's my drink. I want to be there.
Oh my word. Can I join? That's so good. That's brilliant.
It's quite random.
It's so random. It's so good. Jackie?
Mine's quite different to that. Sir Richard Attenborough.
Oh, yeah.
I always say if I ever had a regret of somebody I never got to meet, it was dear old darling Dickie. And because I just, as a younger person growing up, I loved his movies. I loved the fact that he was always known as a great collaborator, that he would ask anybody on set for their thoughts. And I just think, and he seemed to create a lovely atmosphere around him. And I often wish that I could have just sat with him for a bit and talked to him about film. Although, funnily enough, the other person that I really, really admire is Sir David Putnam. And I always thought I'd love to meet him and talk to him about what it's like, get producing tips from him.
Yeah. And
then I did meet him and we talked about football.
So funny.
It turns out he and my dad support the same football team, and that night there was a really important match for them, and so we just ended up talking about this football match. I do quite like football, so it wasn't a big stretch, but it was quite funny that he was this guy that I had admired for so long and was thinking, really going to pick his brains. Yep.
That's so funny.
We talked about football.
The irony of life.
There you go.
Oh, great.
Thanks so much,
Thank
Kendall.
you. Thanks
Bye,
very
guys.
much.
Thank
Take
you.
care of yourself.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. If you want to see more inspirational videos just like this, then don't forget to subscribe, which you can do by clicking right over here. Also, leave us a comment in the section below and tell us who you guys would like us to break the ice with next.